Welcome to the Building the Groundwork podcast. Today we have Austin Conti, the CEO and co-founder of Tenna. Welcome, Austin.
Hey, Alex. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good deal. Quickly, take us through what Tenna is. What does Tenna offer in the market? And I'd love to hear about how you arrived at Tenna and some of your background in the industry.
Sure. So Tenna is an equipment fleet management program. We solve the problem for self-performed contractors that have a mixed fleet of all types of assets, from pickup trucks to cranes to dozers, excavators, trench boxes, etc. And we basically use a series of integrations or IoT sensors to get the data on those assets that powers really our software system that enables operational workflows of maintenance, how you maintain the assets, how you dispatch the assets, how you have a great safety driver program with video cameras. So anything to managing a fleet, from operations to finance, we can do within our platform.
Great. And Tenna, you were telling me offline, about to be in your 10th year of business?
Yeah, so the idea was in 2015. So we really started building the product in 2016, and then pushed our go-to-market strategy in 2019, hiring our sales organization and ramping the business. So yeah, around almost 10 years next year.
One of the common themes that we talk about a lot in this podcast is like career path. How do people get into the industry? How do they? What kind of experience do they gain that leads them to either start a company or advance to what they're doing? Take us through your background.
Yeah, sure. So I'm fortunate to come from a family business called the Conti Group, which is over 100-year contractor, started in 1906. Like many of the contractors we service across the U.S., private business. And my background has really been growing up in the construction industry, working with my grandfather during summers, working with my father through different parts of the company, and always loved the action of construction. At the same time, I've always had an entrepreneurial bug. Love technology, love startups, love invention. So, and also I would say that's a lot of our DNA within the Conti organization is building new types of companies and ventures. And really came up for the concept of Tenna through my experience at the Conti Group, which was all different types of roles in the organization, whether that's some time in estimating, out in the field. I was fortunate to work abroad on some of our projects across the country, so good exposure to construction operations. Just had the entrepreneurial bug and saw the need within the industry from our own experience.
What type of work does the Conti Group do? And I know it's a wide array of work, but with some of the different type of work. Yeah,
sure. So Conti Group has a series of entities underneath it. Conti Civil does primary civil self-performed construction up and down the East Coast, roads and bridges, heavy civil projects. We have a federal company called Conti Federal that does work, really across the world for the Army Corps and other organizations on the federal side. Those are our two primary construction endeavors, and obviously Tenna, which is born from Conti, but its own separate entity as a technology company.
And are you fifth generation or sixth generation in the business?
So it was my great-grandfather that came over from Italy. Typical story, stonemason with the big hands, right?
Yeah.
So I'm fifth generation.
Wow, that's amazing. And it comes over and started in New Jersey. Is that where the business was born?
Yeah. Started in New Jersey. Built on a lot of values that I think we've seen across in other construction companies. But our slogan within Conti is done once, done right. So it's this focus on quality and pre-planning and really honesty, integrity. And that's what's kept the businesses around for so long. His saying as a stonemason, right, just looking for work and making a living, was to give a customer, an extra bag of cement. So always do the extra work to ensure that the job's done right. Those are the base values that everyone takes a lot of pride in. If you're in software, if you're building a bridge, same concept across the board.
At what point for the Conti group did the group expand? Like you mentioned doing projects internationally, up and down the East Coast. At what point did the group start branching out from New Jersey?
So I would say when my father took over the business, he is a very entrepreneurial man. And we also looked at different markets, whether that's outside civil, a lot of work in environmental business. We had a business called Conti Environmental. Again, following the core, doing work in New Orleans. Again, looking at some projects in Africa. It was during when he was directly running the construction companies, where we're pushing into new markets. One, from just an entrepreneurial nature, and then two, okay, where is there less competition? How do we think outside the box here? And then also within different verticals. So we were in the solar industry for a very long time, and Conti Solar became one of the largest EPCs in the United States. So we're always looking at new markets and different things around the infrastructure industry, right? So, if you're doing a utility project or putting a sensor on an excavator, you're impacting infrastructure, and that's the businesses that we know and we like to focus on.
And how many employees roughly today under the Conti group?
Say roughly 1,000, but that's like different with trades as well. Full time, I don't have an exact number on it because I'm not as involved in the civil federal company.
And so, despite the last name, I got a little inside information from a common friend that we know. Despite the last name, the red carpet was not necessarily rolled out for you. That you had to learn kind of the hard way. I think in Ghana on a project. Is that one of the first, like, welcome to the construction business?
I wouldn't say it was the first. I mean, the company was very good to me. I think I had a lot of good mentors at Conti, but we did look at some work internationally, and I did want to go. I thought it was really cool. So when can you have the chance to work abroad and experience those cultures? So it wasn't like, hey, your last name's Conti, go to Africa. It seems pretty cool. I'd like to be there, and my mom didn't like that. But I'd say it was very interesting to work abroad. Yeah.
How old were you when you went over there for that project? And what was the project? What did it entail?
I was like 3 years out of college, probably like 25-ish. It was a XM Bank sponsored project. It wasn't a complete success, but it was a sanitary sewer cleanup project we were working on. Because in West Africa in general, they're mostly open drains, and this was a project to close those drains and provide really kind of a new master plan for the city to help with rainwater, because there's a lot of flooding, which causes fires, which causes a lot of unneeded deaths. So we were over there doing some of that work.
Like, how do you find out about that project to get involved?
Just different work through federal government. Sometimes you're approached with these projects, So again, this was XM Bank. Could have been XM Bank finance job.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so you mentioned earlier already that you always had an entrepreneurial bug. So it was always kind of the plan for you to get a good base of knowledge, working in the business, and then eventually working towards starting your own company. Is that right?
Not necessarily. I always wanted to go into the business. One, because I had a passion for it. I do think with family businesses, when they work really well. If they don't work, sometimes they don't work really well. They go bad, but in our case, it works very well. So I wanted good training, and I wanted good exposure from a lot of good leaders within the company. I went to Babson College, which kind of just breeds, starting a business they into you. And I've always liked the business model of software, and I like inventing things, and there's a lot of pride. You probably see it with your product, with someone using your tool.
Of course.
That feels like, it could be a big sale, but to see someone actually use your product feels, I think, even better, right? So that was kind of driving me for it.
Okay, and so then what was the why around the invention of Tenna? Like, what was the initial idea? What was pulling you in that direction to do it?
Yeah. So I was working on some projects on the civil side, and we're always kind of maximizing where we want to put our equipment fleet. I would say the shops at Conti do an incredible job. We have really good equipment fleet operations, but we had tried a couple tools to monitor our fleet, and unfortunately, the tracker online rate was very low, so we actually had to throw the product out.
Shit.
And then we also tried different things over the years. Like, I remember going into one of our team members' office, and he had a stainless steel QR code etched. I was like, that is super cool. We should put that on all our stuff. Yeah, this could be great. So the idea really came up from, experience with our own fleet. And I remember at the same time, we had liquidated one of our yards, and we had over $1 million of stuff we didn't even know we had, right? And that's not uncommon. Now that goes from a desk to an actual, I'm not saying we didn't know we had an excavator, but just all that miscellaneous stuff that builds up. So between liquidating one of our shops and moving the shops, between seeing how we have to move our own stuff to the failed telematics, and then also at that time, there were just so many reports on IoT, like Cisco report, how many billions of sensors are going to be out there. Really? It was that hot time, and I thought, there could be something here. At the same time, I was very interested in marketplaces because we were trying to sell excess steel on one of our projects, and I couldn't find a good construction marketplace.
Sure. So
Tenna's original idea, the initial name of the company was called Build Source, which was a terrible name. You can't pronounce it, you can't spell it. The acronym's BS, so we had to throw that out. But it was a marketplace, and when I went around testing the marketplace as well as our own things, everyone's like, that's great, but I don't even know what I have, right? So I'm not sure. So asset management became the main idea.
Sure.
And we started with small tools because small tool management has always been an issue. And from small tools, we realized you want to actually cover all assets. You want to do that really well, which expands to all the telematics and workflows.
Yeah, you don't have to tell me about asset tracking. I worked at a dealer for a long time, and the amount of times where we would rent a wheel loader with a bucket and forks to a customer, like a heavy civil customer, and they're working on a highway project, and they drop the set of forks over here, and they forget about it. And then when the rental is up and they just return the machine in a bucket, and we're sitting there, and it took us a while as a dealer to wait a minute, this went out with bucket and forks and it didn't come back with it, and then you're scrambling. And so I know the pains of asset tracking very, very well. Yeah, no, I think it's where something is, and then should it be there at the right time and maintained. There's assets are if not the second or first biggest cost expenditure for all these companies, and it's just it's not because contractors don't do a good job or are trying to be organized. There's just a lot going on. Yes. The project can be chaos.
Yeah, it's just nature of the business.
So interesting. So you have the idea based on experiences, and having started a technology company myself, you have an idea, but who builds it? That's the next question. And so, because ideas are great. A lot of people have ideas. I've had a lot of people tell me that they had the idea for Heave before me, right? And I'm sure plenty of people have said the same thing to you. So, how did you find someone to build it?
Yeah. So I did look to get some outside advisors and advice on this, because no one within our organization, with people that are software experts, but doing what we were trying to do was different. But I'm sorry, even before I got an advisor, I do have a co-founder in the business. His name's Jose. So we decided to start the business together. And we actually outsourced the initial development just to get an MVP.
Sure.
And I was like, let's just prove the concept because I want to make sure that people will pay for this concept. And I remember using a company in Boston, and that got us to like, call it, 0 to 0.2.
Sure.
not even
sure.
1 minute.
Right.
But I remember being exposed to the challenges of software engineering early on through that experience because, in construction, everything's on a P3, P6 schedule, and you are so milestone driven. And that was exposure to agile development. And I say now we're a hybrid in that way within Tenna.
Right.
So it was proving an MVP, and that was, from there, getting it going a bit before we started building our internal software team, which has taken a long time to get the leaders who we have today and the team behind it who do a great job for us.
One of the questions that I had, just like reading about your journey, is was the Conti, were you able to use the Conti group as like a guinea pig for your initial MVP? Or because the company was so established, it wouldn't have been the right fit for them to try a brand new technology product?
Yeah. No, I would say the equipment team at Conti was instrumental in helping design it, test it.
Oh, great.
They're also very patient because I would say the things that we want to beat up on, they tried first.
Sure.
But then early on, we also decided like we need to go places that don't know our brand and validate it because we want to prove this is a business that we can scale even globally, not just in the markets that we serve, and trust it because we have tested it. So our initial clients for Tenna were not in the New Jersey and New York area. They're up actually more in the Massachusetts area that didn't know the brand as much. And
I'm sure it was the same for you. Those first customers, it is so difficult, right? Do you remember the first customer, like the first customer to sign on the dotted line?
Oh, yeah, I remember. I'm not going to tell their name on the podcast.
Yeah, sure. No, I got you.
but, absolutely, yeah. I remember celebrating, it was a $15,000 recurring sale for a small tool management. And that, me and Jose just drove a Ford Fusion around everywhere doing door-to-door sales to try to get it off the ground. It was it felt so good to get the first sale. Absolutely.
No doubt. And then what was their experience? Like you mentioned earlier, there's nothing like seeing like an idea come to fruition. It's in a customer's hands, and hopefully it does everything that you explained that it would do. What was that initial product like for the customer? Did they have like a wow moment? Did they?
To be truthful, I don't believe it was just a wow. I think it just solved the problem they were looking for.
Sure.
To us, it was probably more of a wow. So like, people are using this, but this was again, Tenna in 2000. Call it 18 it doesn't look like the same at all. It's so different. There's so much more to it. This was really on the small tool management side. I would say our first telematics client, we had to go through some scaling issues with it because we were scaling quickly. And we almost, through that, partnered early on some development. So they helped guide the different software modules we brought on and we built. But we were pretty upfront on, these things aren't built. So you're taking the gamble on a smaller company. There's advantages to that because you guys are, you have access and we are following the lead. But they knew it was unproven to some extent.
Sure. How long were you founder-led sales with you and your co-founder?
It's a great question. I'm still involved in sales today, but we have a series of sales leaders across the country. At least 2.5, 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's longer than usual, I would say.
Yeah.
But
we swapped too. So my co-founder, I was doing more product development to start, and then my co-founder did sales, and then he's a much better engineer than I am. He's civil engineer background, master's of engineering, and then we swapped, and he went more into the product, and I went more on the sales side. And I think that was a lucky swap, because there's sometimes your product and sales conflict. Like, I can win this if you guys build this for me, but you want to build for the market.
Sure.
So that gave an appreciation and empathy for each role. So we can think through what's best for the broader base versus just a one-off.
Yeah, for me, I had a good base of knowledge and experience with what we were building, and we get our initial product out into the market, and then there are 3-5 things that would pop up when customers were using it, that because it's impossible to think through every possible scenario, and that things that we had to fix quickly. What do you remember what some of those like early learnings were for you with your initial product of like, we didn't think about that, we got to tighten up the product and fix this?
Yeah, I would say the bigger challenge for us early on was data quality coming from hardware, and that's something that when you start with us, because we are hardware enabled, everybody wants the report, but the report doesn't mean kind of jack unless the data from the trackers and the data is coming in clean.
Mm.
And there's a lot of nuances at how messages come through different trackers and organizing those messages and ensuring you have clean pipelines.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we had some lessons early on to ensure quality on that.
Mm-hmm.
That have helped us win today. But early on, I don't think we truly appreciate the complexity of IoT and how that enables.
Sure.
So, and hardware with supply chains, I remember there were some issues going on with that, and chips, and so that was a lot of lessons there.
Yeah, I'm sure you've reread the same type of materials that I have. I think one of the harder things about being an entrepreneur and starting something is towing the line between being stubborn and listening and being open to change and improvement. Like, how do you view that? Because you do need a certain level of stubbornness to push through, but also you could, if you're too stubborn, you could just die because you're not listening to customers. How do you think about that?
Yeah. Some of the core values for us is like putting your ego aside. Now, it doesn't mean you're not ego driven and you want to win. Mm-hmm. That's very different from, hey, my idea is the best in the room. So I think the balance, like, when do you push and when do you listen? Like, you just need to have, healthy debates, like to have the conversation, challenge each other, but challenge each other like with data. Right. So go through it, and if you have something, you have a great idea, let's try to prove it a little bit and give it a shot. At the same time, something I think is important is just a discipline to see something through for a bit. So like you're saying, if you have an idea, you want to hold it, at least try to work it for prove it out for 1 to 3 months. If you're binging around so much and you're kind of playing kids soccer, you really don't have enough time to see that idea through to know if you were right or wrong, right? So it's okay to, I think, be wrong with something as long as you had enough data behind it and you truly thought through and you're not shooting from the hip all the time. Does that kind of answer the question?
Absolutely. Yeah. How did you think about the product development? Like, did you have a vision like that you were going to be executing in stages or steps? Or was it, hey, we get our MVP to market and then it's in customer hands, and then as we see how it's being used, and then as things come up, it's like, hey, we can add to the product in this way?
Yeah. So we thought about it in like broad themes, and then our customers guided a little bit more what takes priority. So if we know we're going to build, we called it like operational intelligence and focus on the ops team. Like, we focused on maintenance product, dispatching, we call it resource management. So as long as we're in those themes now, within that one product set, a customer say, hey, like, we don't like this. And if 5 other customers are like, we're not getting the usability from it, we need to move that up within that product. But it's not like we're switching and then building a completely different value add or different offering market rate. So we try to stay disciplined to our themes, but flexible within those product sets within the themes. But that's me being idealistic.
Sure.
You know, if enough customers are saying we're not getting the value here, we have to listen. You know, they are customers. So,
absolutely. I know that well.
Yeah. That's I think one of the hardest things in software, wherever is like you do have the power to build what you like, which is awesome, but it's a constant game of prioritization.
Yep. And you hear some snippets like from other tech founders where it'll say, well, customers just don't know what they want right now. You know, so that can be dangerous. But there also could be some truth to that. And so it is an interesting dilemma, right? Yeah,
you hear that. You hear, we'll define what the customers want, which I don't know what big tech said that. And I think it's hard also for like these broad statements that don't apply to vertical specific solutions. Like you and I serve the construction industry. So our lens of focus, actually, we have an advantage there. Where if someone's trying to create, the next consumer product, like they have to go there, right? They have to take a bet. We almost don't have to do that because we have a much more defined market in general. Your
early customers, was their pain enough that you obviously led to your idea to where they were open to a technology solution, or did you encounter a lot of that old school attitude in the industry where it's like anti-technology, just discomfort with it? What was that, those early years, what were those like?
I feel like we encountered that earlier on. Now I'm not seeing it as much. I would say close to 40 or 50% of our customers still are greenfield, like on whiteboards. The other half we're consolidating software, they're switching vendors. But early on, I remember one demo, and this awesome, super obvious guy's been in the industry for 20 plus years. Said, frankly, I'll just never use your product.
Sure.
He had the flip phone that almost looked like a fax machine. Like you could probably fax this thing. But he was like, my daughter's coming in, and she's tech forward. You should talk to her, right? So I think there was that generational shift that's going on, and I know, I don't know if it's Gen Z or whatever next one's in, but technology is very important for recruiting. So people want to use the best tools now. But we definitely had pushback. I mean,
sure.
How many stats are there? But construction lagging in technology adoption.
And how did you handle that? Because I made this mistake a lot early on, and I think it speaks to some of the things we discussed. Like you have an idea, you're really proud of the idea, you know that it can help. But one of the mistakes that I made early on was I didn't really dial in what the ideal customer looked like, and so I fell into that where you get pushback from the guy with the flip phone, and also it's somewhat of a competitive flaw where I want to win everything. So it's like, no, I want to convince this old school guy that we can still help him, and you're just fighting a losing battle. So I learned that over time, where it's like, no, we should focus on this group of customers. Did you learn that lesson as well? And then what were the ideal customers for Tenna in the early days? What did they look like?
Yeah, we absolutely learned that lesson. And I think that's still a discipline going forward. We tested, construction was always our primary market, but I did test some other markets, whether that was different places in oil and gas. We went to waste management. We sold porta potty rental companies. Not a great market for Tenna, great use case, right? But different adoption. So we tested a series of different verticals, with construction always knowing number one, and then said, okay, there's even too many requests within those verticals to win. So we're just going to laser in on construction. We tried smaller companies. We tried very large enterprise. We service both today. But I would say we have a sweet spot in, 25 million and above. revenue contractor. Above 500 million, we still service, and we have some public companies on board with the product. But it is more also a high quality offering, and if you're like 2 trucks, you might not be of value to you. You might want to track those trucks, but you need to have almost wide enough of a fleet that the problem is expensive enough that you want to deploy a solution. So, yeah, a lot of trial and error on it. And I think that any growth company startup should try all these things, log it, study it, and then study the data and make the next move.
Did you focus on a certain area in the beginning? Because I know you're across the country today.
Yep.
And you mentioned maybe your first customers were in the Massachusetts area. Did you focus on a small geographic area in the beginning, or were you just trying to get in front of as many contractors as possible to get those early users?
Yeah, we focused it more in the Northeast. And then as I scaled the sales organization, we believe in local markets at Tenna. So again, we believe a lot in the association. So we've also scaled around locally where we build relationships and want to work with people for 10 plus years. So we couldn't, say I'm going to service someone across the country and here we're starting out.
Yep. Definitely. And the platform is very robust today. And so can you speak to like some of the evolution of the product, from the early days to where you are now?
Yeah. I think there's kind of two lanes with it. It's like the hardware innovation and then the software platform. We started out more as a small tool management company using QR codes and Bluetooth technology to connect. And then over time, we scaled to full telematics offerings on vehicles, heavy equipment, and now also cameras, 360 cameras around yellow iron and trucks. And the evolution has really grown deep into the CAN bus, so we get a lot of the default codes natively off the heavy yellow iron, which is an advantage for us in the market. We get a lot of our own R&D on that and testing. And then on the software side, it kind of started out with more what are the problem sets, where is anything, so the tracking. And then we scaled it to really dive into utilization and how machines are being utilized per shift and tying billing rates to that. And then we scaled into building a maintenance module. We scaled into a full dispatch and planning module. We scaled into a safety and compliance module. And now we're really upping our reporting and then eventually maybe into more of the financials and materials as well.
Interesting. So you get to telematics, then you mentioned the CAN bus integration, I guess. So your customers can pull error codes, and then you have a dispatching solution. So they're dispatching their own. They have to have their own internal technicians to fix the fleet. Is that kind of how the workflow goes?
This is just almost dispatching to the job. So again, we see the problem. If you have and call it a $100 million contractor, and you're running a series of jobs, and one job wants to request the dozer, and the other job doesn't want to give it up. We can look at utilization, but we funnel all those requests in early, so you can have visibility on, hey, which piece is closest to you, which piece actually is fully maintained and ready for dispatch, which also has the lowest utilization, so you can maximize those moves. So it's almost like your PM, your super, your VP of ops tool to know where everything's moving within the company.
Interesting. Yeah, and the telematics is a pretty crowded field today, would you say?
Yeah.
And so what would be some of the differentiators between the Tenna telematics tool and offering versus the crowded field that you guys compete against?
Yeah. On the base level, data quality and tracker quality, and then robust integration. So we do integrate with a series of the OEMs. We integrate with a series of the accounting platforms. And our trackers have kind of lower than a 2% offline rate, which is very low to the industry average. So we've seen some companies pushing 20 to 30% offline rates with their units.
So 20% of the time it's not reporting?
Yeah, or there's some issue with it. And we have again, we have our own QC facility. We take a real robust, hey, are the trackers working? Like, number
Yes.
one. If that's working, then the other competitive advantage is on the focused operational software.
See.
And who would you say your main competitor is today?
Good question. There's a couple competitors out there. We see Verizon out there. We see Samsara out there. HESS is out there on their equipment side.
Mhm.
And then there's GPS Insight. Lytix is a good camera company. So you see, within those silos,
Mhm.
we have competitors. So we have like our fleet and telematics competitors. We have our equipment competitors. But one of our other advantages, we can pull everything in. So you don't have to go buy a small tool application, an maintenance application, a camera application.
Mhm.
You can do that all within Tenna.
You seem to be a very like big picture idea guy. What is like the vision going forward? You've already kind of built out the platform so much in the last 10 years. Like what do you see like the next thing is for you to introduce to your customers?
Yeah. For us right now, we have built a lot. And I tell our team it's a balance of like new innovation, and we just call it sandpapering. So before we have a couple of new ideas brewing, we have one of our customer events this fall, and we're kind of helping. And we're going to put on the board the series of ideas, and what do you guys think we should work on next? Whether that's more on the financials, whether that's on upping different modules within maintenance and resource management. So a little less on this next major thing, but I just want to be the best for construction we can be, which I think is another year of just refining, getting feedback, and then user experience to be the best. Everyone's going to say it, but I do think AI will impact reporting in the future, right? We're playing with things. We want to see how it works. And then also just how you plug into the ecosystem of construction, because there are a lot of point solutions, and we want to help tie those things together to make sure we talk to this other products that really work well. So if we're talking to project management systems like Procore, RiskGas, we're talking to the ERPs like Coins and Vista. Like we want to fit. We don't want it to be, hard for the end customer.
How many software engineers do you have on your team?
So we're call it like software, product QA, designers, 40, 45, 50.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do they work remotely? Are they across the country from different areas, or are they located where you guys are?
Both. We have
Okay.
leadership located locally. We have engineers remote across the country. Yep.
Yeah, that's an impressive size group.
Yep.
Obviously building all your own technology, and very, very. We have 5, and that's a step up from where we were a year ago.
Yep. No, it's been taking years, and we're very fortunate with our team. They do a great job, and the invention's fun. It's hard, but it's definitely
No doubt. Absolutely. Yeah. But it is very fun. It's incredible feeling to conceive something like on a whiteboard and then see it come to life. Incredible feeling.
Yeah.
And then seeing a customer use it and it worked.
Yeah. My favorite thing is to walk into a shop and see our stuff on board. Like that's what feels the best.
Sure. Do you still get out in the field and visit with customers today?
I do. I travel a good amount. I was almost on the road 2 weeks a month last year. I have a 8-month-old boy, so I've toned it down just a little bit, but
Sure.
still getting out there. I think we have a slogan in Tenna: show up and give a damn. So that's how we like to get feedback and get in front of people.
Yeah, there's no replacement for it.
Yeah.
No question. I have a question for you, just out of curiosity, like working for a family business. Was it ever difficult for you with your last name, like with people treating you differently? Did you ever feel like maybe certain people wouldn't be real with you because of your name, or did you not really have those concerns or those issues?
Yeah, tough question. Yeah, I would say there was more of a paranoia on my side, right? I don't, obviously people may treat you differently for your last name. I don't think I felt that a lot, but it almost just lit a fire under me to work really hard.
Sure.
And prove myself. And I think that's what it was, that I didn't want to seem like things were given to me. So I wanted to be at work early. I wanted to show that I worked. I think a lot of people growing up in family business probably have that as well. But that was really important for me because I really liked the business. I didn't feel forced into it.
Sure.
If I felt forced into it, it would be different. But yeah, so I guess that was the complex, if you say, one comes with the last name.
Yeah, I asked because it was a personal thing to me too. So I worked for a dealership that my father-in-law owned.
Yep.
And I had a paranoia when I was younger about it. And then I think I just became more comfortable. So I experienced everything that you did, like I wanted to make sure there was no doubt amongst anyone else that I was there and I was working harder than anybody else, that nothing was given to me, everything had to be earned. And I had a situation where I kind of overheard some people talking and they didn't know I was there. And it was just a moment a reminder for me where it's there's nothing that you can do. You can't get wrapped up in what people say, and it helped me to just kind of push forward. Who cares? Just show up every day, and you can't be worried about what other people think or say.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And at the same time, I guess I was very fortunate. I had people in the company that were just good coaches besides just family members.
Sure.
So I felt a bond there, and then from just team sports, I felt it was a team sport.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
I think when you have that mentality, I guess then any paranoia or fear goes away because you just want the team to win, and people kind of bringing you in as a team member. And I think that goes for any business venture, family business or not. I think maybe sometimes be lacking a little bit in the economy today. What is that pride for the team and the fun of winning there, versus okay, this is the next job or this, or I'm a subcontractor here. That kind of makes work really fun. That's the competitive nature. We like to get out and win.
Yeah, so, no doubt. What are you like as a leader?
I'm a serious guy. I take work real seriously. I guess I'm more traditional, and I do expect high things from our team. But I like to work with my team members. For example, on the sales side, if I need to go do a meeting with someone, I'm there. You tell me what you need to win. I think there's a lot of different labels on servant leader or more dictator leader. I'm not sure. I'd have to ask my team that.
Right.
I do like healthy debate. I like leading with the team. I'm not necessarily someone who doesn't like to get into details. I do like to get into details, and when you prove it to me that you got the details right, I'll back off. Until then, I like to get into it, So I'm not shy about that. Those are some of the things I do, but I do like to work. So I think that energy is, I don't come to Friday and I'm like, okay, well, thank God the week's over. I'm more energized that way, and I like people like that. I understand also it's my company. I'm going to be so passionate about it.
Sure.
I think people like to work for leaders that get fired up each day, I guess the last thing is I'm not super emotional when it comes to decision making. I'm pretty much a data driven leader. And I do you're gonna have to make some gut calls, but like we were talking about earlier, I like to see what is the ROI. Let's go through the metrics. Let's go through the math on this and see what works.
Have you always been that way, or did you develop more focus on the metrics because of maybe making some mistakes, going with your gut or instinct?
Yeah, I would say I developed more that way. I was probably like earlier in the business, you're making more emotional calls, and
Sure.
now I'm less. So I'd be not be truthful to say I was this metric-driven guy my whole life.
Yeah. So then your like cool, calm demeanor today is just like really maturity over time, right? So there was more emotion in the beginning.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah. I think so. There's times I get hot, no doubt. I guess I'm a Sicilian Italian guy. I am emotional at times.
Sure.
But I try to be cool when it comes to big decisions.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be a lot more emotional with decision making 10 years ago. It's just, I think it's human nature. I think kids also help with that.
Yeah.
Being more patient, realizing how much is outside of your control.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing. There's some things you can't control, and you focus on everything you can to the best of your ability. And then, like you asked earlier on tech adoption, sometimes it's just not the right time for companies.
Yes.
And that's okay. And that's perfect. Like, it can make perfect sense, but they may have a more important priority for their business. They might not have the personnel or the cultural appetite to adopt it. No problem. Like, the good thing about construction is, like, people probably ask you, Alex, like, what's the total addressable market of the construction industry? I have no effing idea, right?
Right.
Like, there's a million reports on it, but how many times you just drive someone, they're not on Zoom Info, they're not anywhere.
Right.
It's such a big, awesome market that there's always another company out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, completely agree. And yes, I do get asked that all the time. And do you think you have the bug to start something additionally down the road, or is this just keep building and developing Tenna?
Yeah, I always have like a notebook of like ideas going, but there's too much going on with Tenna, and I'm having too much fun with it with the team. So no appetite for new business right now.
Good deal.
Not at all.
What would you say your biggest challenge is today, like in the near future? What is something you guys are working to solve?
Yeah. Again, balancing the different, I would say, requests that are coming from customers on making sure we do the right thing for the market. I have this vision that for us to be perceived as the best service in the industry for software. So doing that in a scalable manner, because a lot of time tech companies are like, they'll just do a call. Like, we want to, I think the insurance industry, I think the banking industry, they do a great job with relationship management. We want that same bar on the software side. So we're working on that. Obviously there's things we're learning, but we want to be perceived, and we want to be the best service component for our software.
So what does that really mean? Like, for your customers, like what role does your company fill in terms of service? How do you get involved?
Helping them through workflows, doing quarterly business reviews with not just the power users, but with the management team and the different departments, really ensuring they're getting ROI, right? So going through, you guys came to us for these problem sets. How are you doing against it? Are we measuring against it? Is there anything else we can do? Or are we good? Because I think with any sometimes tech purchases, why you bought it gets lost throughout the implementation. And matching back to those metrics, like what I saw in your guys' case study on Burgess, like, okay, this is what we actually saved from here.
Yeah.
Like, we like to, and that takes time to prove, right? It's there.
Sure.
But you need to prove that.
Yeah, and so that's what I wanted to kind of dig into is, so it's you guys' services maybe being an advisor or a consultant. Hey, did you guys think of this? Or we noticed this in the data that is coming through.
Yeah, I would say it's a tech partner, right? And then it's also, hey, if I can't log in, boom, we get back to you like that. Right.
Sure.
So
Sure.
Those two parts of it.
Does anyone ever tell the customer to turn it off and turn it back on again? The common technology.
Yeah, we were joking before. We couldn't get our internet, both ours get
Right.
so,
Right. Yeah. I think I'm going to issue a directive within our company to never tell a customer to turn it off and turn it back on. The answer has to be something different. Well, awesome. I really appreciate you giving me some time this morning and to walk us through, how Tenna was started and your journey in the market. It's been cool to follow as well. We're 4 years in. We strive to. I can't wait to get to that 10-year mark, like where you guys are. So,
yeah, well, appreciate the convo, Alex, and following you guys as well, and look forward to keeping in touch with you guys.
fantastic.
If you're up in New Hope, Pennsylvania, let me know. I'm in Tampa, I'll let you know.
I take my son to one Eagles home game a year. That's our tradition, and I do have a couple of visits here in the fall up to the area. So,
All right, awesome, great.
Great to meet you. I appreciate it.
Nice meeting you, Alex.
Thanks.
All right, bye.